Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep today into some really fascinating source material all about emotions in the workplace.
Right, and specifically drawing a lot from embracing emotions, the new workplace intelligence.
Exactly. And for so long, the idea was pretty simple, wasn't it? Just, you know, check your emotions at the door.
Yeah, leave them behind. But
Hmm.
these sources, they totally flip that script.
They really do.
That old way, it's not just unrealistic. The material basically says it's, well, counterproductive.
How so?
Well, the core idea, the really powerful one, is that emotions aren't just feelings that get in the way. They're actually data, important data points.
Data points, okay.
Yeah, so ignoring them means you're missing crucial information
Hmm.
right there in front of you. And that can lead to mistakes, bad decisions.
Disconnected teams, I bet.
Absolutely.
So this deep dive is really your shortcut to understanding why these sources say feelings at work aren't a bug. They're more like a feature we need to understand.
A feature we need to learn to read.
Yeah. We're exploring this together, pulling out the really key stuff just for you.
And what's so interesting is this shift, from trying to suppress everything to just acknowledging, hey, humans are emotional creatures,
Mm.
like all the time.
Regardless of circumstances, they say.
Exactly. The material stresses that our feelings are guideposts, powerful ones. The trick isn't getting rid of them.
But learning from them
Yeah.
and expressing them effectively,
That's it, learning to read the signals.
which leads to this key concept they talk about, emotional fluency.
Right. What does that actually mean, though?
Well, they define it as um, the ability to productively sense emotion.
Okay, so picking up on it
Yeah.
in yourself and others.
Yeah, and then knowing what to do about it, like how and when to turn those feelings into healthy action.
So it's not about feeling less emotion.
No, it's about understanding the message, the signal behind the feeling.
Got it. And they make a pretty strong case, don't they, that this emotional intelligence, EQ, is actually a better predictor of success at work than just pure IQ.
That's a huge claim.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they argue.
And there's that Starbucks example, right, with Howard Schultz in 2008.
Oh, yeah, that one really stands out in the sources. Tell us about that.
Well, you remember, Starbucks was struggling, sales down, morale low. Schultz comes back.
And he gets emotional.
Very. The sources describe him actually crying during a big company meeting. He talked about feeling personally responsible for the employees, how his own family history played into that.
Wow. So real vulnerability.
Exactly. But it wasn't just about feeling sad. He was processing the data, the impact on people, his own connection to it. And then, crucially, he laid out a plan, asked for feedback.
And it worked. Right. Stock price went up.
By 2010, yeah, higher than ever. It shows how those emotional dynamics are just completely tied into business results.
So his vulnerability wasn't weakness in that moment.
No, it was part of a strategy. It resonated. It helped pave the way for that comeback.
But, and this seems important, the sources add a big but.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's not a free pass to just, let loose emotionally all the time.
Right. It's about learning from emotions, talking about them.
Without just becoming emotional in a way that's, messy or hurts other people.
Finding that balance. Being authentic, letting the emotional data in,
Yeah.
but handling it constructively, respectfully.
Not, as they put it, bulldozing over other people's feelings.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And navigating work today, well, it demands this kind of emotional literacy. The sources are clear. More collaboration is great, but
It often means more friction,
Hmm.
more conflict.
exactly. It reminds me of that Elaine line from Seinfeld. I had to take a sick day. I'm so sick of these people. And
Yes, we've all been there.
it rings true, right?
Totally. And the sources also get into these common pressures, the things that really take an emotional toll.
Like what?
Like feeling you have to be busier to be important, that whole hamster wheel feeling.
Oh, yeah. Or that thing they call destination disease.
Oh, yeah.
It's like always glorifying the future. I'll be happy when I get the promotion or whatever to justify being kind of miserable right now.
Yeah, delaying happiness indefinitely.
Right. And the material points out, look, constant happiness, that's not really the goal or even possible. They quote psychologist Donald Campbell
What did he say?
that directly chasing happiness is actually a recipe for unhappiness. Kind of backwards, but makes sense when you think about it.
Okay, so if we can't just suppress the negative stuff like sadness or anger, and we can't just aim for constant happiness, what do the sources suggest?
Well, first, trying to push those feelings down usually backfires, makes them stronger, often.
So don't suppress. What then?
Recognize them. Understand the signal. There's a great William James quote they use.
Go on.
The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another.
Okay, so it's not about stopping the feeling itself, but managing the response, choosing the thought.
Exactly. Managing how you react to the feeling.
And they offer some actual strategies for this,
Yeah.
for handling difficulties.
They do. Like if you need to talk to someone, choose wisely. Find people who give you the hard truths, push you toward solutions, not just let you vent endlessly.
Focus on the solution, not just the complaining.
Right. Get clear on what actually needs doing. And, this is a big one, focus on the here and now.
Being present.
Yeah. They mention Harvard psychologist Killingsworth and Gilbert finding that a wandering mind, like when you're ruminating, is usually an unhappy mind.
So staying present helps, even if the present isn't perfect.
Seems so. Your well-being is really tied to just being in the moment.
That feels like something you can actually practice. Less rumination, more presence.
And another helpful idea, sorting out the beyonds from the within.
Explain that.
The beyonds are the things you just can't control, no matter what. The within is what you can influence or do something about.
And the point is,
the sources argue that letting go of those beyonds, accepting you can't control them, that actually reduces anxiety faster than trying to, force action on everything. Focus your energy where it counts.
that's a useful distinction. Okay, let's get into some specific emotions. Because the sources have really interesting takes on how they function and affect our decisions. Anxiety, for instance.
Yeah, they call it the fear of more fear, which is interesting. It's tied to that need for control, and it sticks around longer than just being momentarily scared.
It primes you for threat.
Kind of. Then there's regret. Kahneman and Tversky found people work really hard to avoid it, right?
Right, which often means sticking with what you know, even if it's uncomfortable.
Exactly. But the sources also point to research suggesting, hey, maybe making a change, even with the risk of regret, could lead to more happiness down the line than just staying stuck.
That's a real tension there. What about envy? How is that data?
Well, if you're honest about it, envy shows you what you value, what you really want or feel is important, so it can be a signal.
A signal for what?
Maybe a need for change or something to work towards in your own situation, if you can look at it constructively.
Seeing envy as a signal. Interesting. Okay, excitement. That feels good. But the sources sound a note of caution.
They do. Excitement can make us overly optimistic, impulsive even.
How so?
When we're excited, we tend to think less deeply. We're more easily swayed by biases, and we remember things that match our excited mood better.
Like in a casino.
Exactly. That's why casinos are designed that way. To keep you excited, focusing on potential wins, not the likely losses.
Wow. So excitement can actually skew the data we use to make decisions. Okay,
Yeah.
what about sadness?
Sadness, well, it tends to make us see the glass half empty. We expect bad outcomes, set lower goals.
And choose immediate gratification.
Often, yeah, over waiting for something better later. Plus, the rumination that often comes with sadness can really get in the way of clear thinking.
And anger. How does that trip us up?
Anger makes us more likely to take big risks, gamble on long shots, we rely more on stereotypes apparently, and we're less open to hearing advice from others.
Less willing to listen. Okay. And they noted a difference between men and women under duress.
Yeah, citing other research men tending toward riskier choices, women often opting for the lower risk path when stressed.
So the big picture here is that these emotions aren't just moods. They're like filters. They change how we see things, how we process information, how we choose.
Exactly. And recognizing that filter in yourself, understanding how maybe your current feeling is skewing your view, that's vital data for making better choices.
It's not about not feeling. It's about understanding the feeling's impact.
Precisely.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. The sources also link work directly to our personal well-being. They actually suggest caring too much about the job itself can be unhealthy.
Yeah, it's a bit counterintuitive. They suggest maybe focusing on caring more about yourself can be an antidote to work-related anguish. A reframe.
Interesting. And they touch on productivity, too.
Right. They cite studies showing that after about 50 hours a week, productivity often drops off.
So working crazy long hours might actually be less efficient.
Could be. Less time might mean more focus.
Oh.
They also mention this idea of mathematizing experiences.
Like counting steps or tasks.
Yeah. And how sometimes doing that too rigidly can actually suck the joy out of the activity itself. Turns it all into numbers.
Reduces the feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk motivation and engagement. Why do people lack it, according to the sources?
They list a few common culprits. feeling you have no control, not seeing any meaning in the work, not learning anything new, or simply not liking the people you work with.
Makes sense. So what are the solutions? How do you find meaning or boost motivation?
They offer a few ideas. One is looking for magic moments.
Magic moments.
Yeah, those brief interactions where you actually see or feel the positive impact your work has on someone. Apparently, Google talks about this.
Okay, what else?
Job crafting. That's about actively reshaping how you see your tasks, maybe focusing on parts that use your strengths or align with your values.
So reframing your own job.
Exactly. And connecting your work to a bigger, compelling purpose, like that famous story about the SpaceX employee.
The one who said he wasn't just cleaning floors, but helping put a man on Mars.
That's the one. It elevates the meaning instantly.
And the sources really push continuous learning, don't they? Especially now.
Oh, absolutely. With technology changing everything so fast, they stress learning by doing through experience.
And taking time to think.
Yeah.
Like Buffett and Gates.
Yeah, actually scheduling time just to sit and think, reflect, process. That's part of learning too.
And seeing challenges not as problems, but as...
opportunities. Yeah, cultivating that mindset. And relationships come up again, right? Sheryl Sandberg's point.
Remind us.
That motivation comes from working on things we care about and with people we care about. The who matters just as much as the what.
And that ties into the stats about work friendships declining.
Yeah, it's concerning. Down from about half having a close friend at work in '85 to maybe a third in 2004. And the impact is huge. Strong social support makes people 10 times more likely to be engaged.
10 times. That's massive. Which brings us neatly to emotions in teams.
And leadership, yeah.
Yeah.
The big finding here from Google's research and MIT is about psychological safety.
Okay, define that for us again, based on the sources. What is psychological safety in practice?
It's basically a shared belief on the team, a belief that it's safe to take interpersonal risks.
Like what kind of risks?
Suggesting ideas, even half-baked ones, admitting you made a mistake, asking questions that might seem basic, taking a calculated risk without fearing you'll be embarrassed or punished if it doesn't work out.
So it's about how people interact, the emotional climate.
Exactly. It's less about who's on the team, more about how the team works together.
And this is crucial for diverse teams.
Absolutely critical, the sources argue. Diversity only really pays off if people feel safe enough to share those different perspectives and ideas. Otherwise, they just stay quiet.
So how do you build it if you're a leader or even just a team member?
Well, simple things. Actively encourage discussion. Maybe even do bad idea brainstorms just to show it's okay to throw things out there.
Lower the stakes.
Right, ask clarifying questions that show you're genuinely trying to understand, not judge. Use generative language.
Like, let's try this, or building on that idea.
Exactly. Or the classic yes and from improv. And they make a really powerful point. Making someone feel invisible. That's incredibly damaging to safety.
Just ignoring someone.
Yeah.
That feels deeply disrespectful.
It is. And they mention interaction ratios, too, aiming for more positive interactions than negative.
Like Gottman's 5-to-1 ratio for relationships.
Yeah, they bring that up as an ideal, even just being at least as positive as negative, as John Katzenbach suggests. These small, consistent, positive signals build that trust.
They even mentioned Jeff Bezos' 2-pizza rule for meetings.
Yeah. Keep meetings small, 5-7 people. The implication being, maybe one reason we have so many meetings is because people don't feel heard the first time.
Because there isn't enough psychological safety or good communication. So we just have another meeting.
Could be part of it.
Which leads to communicating about emotions in teams. The sources say feelings aren't facts.
Right. Your feeling is real, but it's your subjective experience, not objective reality. Effective communication is about talking about the emotion. I'm feeling frustrated because, without getting totally overwhelmed by the emotion.
Using I statements.
Yeah, and remembering words are just a window, as they say. They show an internal world, but aren't always literal truth.
And this connects back to that idea of emotions being learned, culturally shaped.
Hugely relevant here. If people have different emotional languages based on their background, you need that safety and curiosity to navigate it.
So just saying, I don't see color, isn't helpful.
Actually, the sources suggest it can increase bias. You need to be brave enough to talk about differences, race, background, whatever, explicitly, to tackle potential discrimination. But also, find the common ground.
And we have 5 generations in the workplace now.
Yeah.
All with potentially different norms.
Yeah, that adds another layer. Plus, differences like introversion, extroversion, understanding introverts need quiet to recharge, for example.
Okay, feedback. That's always emotionally loaded.
Definitely. It's hard to hear criticism, especially if it doesn't match how we see ourselves.
So, giving feedback effectively, what did the sources recommend?
Focus on specific behavior, not the person's character. Frame it constructively, like you're bridging a gap. I believe you can do this. Here's something specific that could help.
Tone matters.
Hugely. How you say it is critical emotional data. Ask people how they prefer feedback. Use that high expectations frame. I'm giving you this feedback because I expect great things from you.
They mentioned the Koyan's model.
Yeah, context, observation, impact, next, stay. A structured approach.
And what about asking for feedback? That takes guts.
It does. Adopting a growth mindset helps see it as a chance to learn. Ask someone you trust who knows what they're talking about.
Ask what questions?
Right. What's one thing I could do better rather than any feedback? It prompts specifics. Remember, it's meant to help. Keep a smile file of positive stuff, too.
A smile file. I like that. And remember, feedback isn't objective truth.
Exactly. It's one perspective.
Okay. Emotional culture. This cascades from the top.
That's the idea. Like emotional contagion. Leaders set the tone. And the best sign of a healthy emotional culture. A sense of belonging.
Belonging. How is that created?
Through those unspoken rules, the emotion norms shaped by small, everyday social signals. Adam Grant's question is great for uncovering these. Tell me a story about something that would only happen here.
And simple things, like the Ritz-Carlton 105 rule.
Smile at 10 feet, hello at 5 feet. Tiny actions, big impact on making people feel seen, building belonging.
And belonging isn't about fitting in by hiding yourself.
No, it's feeling safe and valued for your differences. The opposite, feeling isolated, strongly predicts people leaving.
So kindness, sharing stories appropriately, noticing when someone's struggling. These build belonging, like Melody Hobson's Be Color Brave.
Yes, acknowledge difference, don't ignore it, it builds trust.
Which brings us to leadership itself. Relational leadership pays off.
Emotionally and financially, the sources argue. Our brains actually respond well to empathetic bosses. Feeling connected makes employees try harder, perform better, be kinder.
But leaders showing no emotion can be bad, too.
Yeah, it can seem inauthentic, break trust, but there's nuance with vulnerability.
Selective vulnerability.
Right. It builds trust if done right. Oversharing or showing weakness inappropriately. That can destroy trust or undermine authority.
So what's the formula?
They suggest vulnerability plus path forward. Acknowledge the challenge, show appropriate vulnerability, but always offer a clear way ahead.
And that chess versus checkers analogy.
From Marcus Buckingham. Average managers play checkers, treat everyone the same. Great managers play chess, understand and leverage individual differences.
And leaders need to manage their own emotions first.
Absolutely. Hit pause. What am I feeling? Why? What's the need? Jerry Colonna's point is key. Leadership isn't just being real, it's managing your own anxiety so you don't infect the team.
Don't be leaky.
Exactly. Regulate yourself, get support if you need it so you don't dump your stress onto your people.
And really know your people. Become a steward of them.
Yes. Don't tell them how to feel.
Yeah.
Listen. Understand. Manage them individually. Even shifting the mindset to, I work for you, when thinking about enabling your team.
Okay, let's touch briefly on the science bits woven through. Gut feelings.
Described as felt knowledge, rapid processing based on experience, decisions are never purely rational, emotions are always in the mix.
And Lisa Feldman Barrett's idea that emotions aren't universal, but learned, shaped by culture.
Yeah, the brain making meaning, not just reacting. This makes emotional intelligence a skill you can develop.
Which links to those regulation techniques. Reframing, suppressing.
Reappraisal, reframing, suppression, avoiding focus, response control, stifling the physical reaction, different tools for managing the response. And dopamine playing a big role in reward, especially when things are uncertain.
Like gambling. Or workplace uncertainty.
Makes things emotionally charged.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, the main takeaway from this deep dive is what?
It's a huge challenge to that old leave emotions at the door idea. It's not just outdated, it's bad practice.
Instead, we need to embrace emotions.
Yes, but intelligently. Understand them as data. Develop the skills, the fluency to work with them productively. Not let them run wild, but learn from them.
So emotional fluency, psychological safety in teams, building a positive emotional culture. These aren't soft skills anymore.
No, the sources frame them as core competencies, essential for success today.
Managing your own feelings, understanding the data they offer, and learning to read and respond effectively to others' emotions.
It's critical for you, for your team, for leadership. It's not just nice to have, it's fundamental.
So let's leave our listeners with that final thought, connecting back to the science.
Right. If emotions are learned and shaped by our culture, our background, our experiences,
And if emotions are crucial workplace data,
then think about this. How critical does understanding those different emotional languages become? If you want truly effective collaboration, truly inclusive leadership in the diverse workplaces we have today, isn't learning to read that cultural emotional data maybe the most essential skill of all?